Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Darshan Talks. I'm your host, Darshan Kulkarni. It's my mission to help you trust the products and the people you depend on. As you may know, I'm an attorney, I'm a pharmacist, and I advise companies with FDA-regulated products. And interestingly enough, my guest actually helps companies who also work with FDA-regulated products. So if you think about drugs, you wonder about medical devices, you obsess over pharmacy. If you are curious about the FDA, this is the live stream for you. I do have to specify, I am an attorney, but I'm not your attorney. I am a pharmacist, but I'm not your pharmacist. I do these live streams because they're a lot of fun, and I find myself learning something new every single time. I'm really excited for today's conversation because I know I'm going to be learning something new today. I've had a little bit of a pre-discussion, and I'm already excited. But it's always nice to know if someone's actually listening. So if you like what you hear, please like, leave a comment, please subscribe. If you want to ask our guest questions, please feel free to do so. And if you actually like the conversation we're having, please share it. I'm sure people would love hearing about what we're talking about. I do also want to emphasize, because I'm a lawyer and because this is what I do, these are considerations. They don't necessarily reflect the opinions of either myself or my guest or our employers. But if you want to reach out to me, you can actually find me on Twitter at Darshan Talks, or just go to our website at darshantalks.com. Today's live stream, today's interview is really exciting. We're going to talk about life sciences hiring. And we're going to talk primarily about legal hiring, because that's been kind of hot. And what does that look like? So if you are a lawyer, if you are in HR, and you're trying to be, and you're in the life sciences, you may have questions. You may be wondering sort of where is the market right now? Because all I keep hearing about is the great reshuffle. I keep hearing about the great resignation. So if you are interested in all of those things, I think you're going to have a great conversation. My guest is a legal search consultant, and he's been doing this for over 30 years. And let's see, what else can I tell you about him? He's someone I actually reached out to a while ago, and he's been such an interesting guide through a lot of these conversations. I'm really excited to have him today. Our guest of today, Stuart Tenhoor. Stuart, how are you?
Really good, Darshan. I just wanted to say thank you for the chance to talk on your podcast. And I hear good things about it. I've seen it multiple times, and I'm honored to be here today.
Oh, you're very kind. So thank you for coming on. So Stuart, let's start a little bit from the beginning. You chose a really niche area of hiring. You didn't sort of go, I'm going to be in life sciences hiring. You went, I'm going to work with lawyers, and not just lawyers in the life sciences, and not just life sciences lawyers, but you do a lot of this anyways, but you kind of also focus on regulatory lawyers. Talk to me a little bit about how you got there.
Yeah, thank you. I am focused on the food and drug space because over the years I've seen the growth in the area. The demand is constant for good FDA lawyers. I placed lawyers in every different discipline over my career, but just to tell you, in 2008 or 2009, there was a huge downturn in the legal market. Of course, the economic financial meltdown that we had. And I was looking for other options to focus on because some of my regular stuff, lawyers were being laid off and there wasn't as much demand. And lo and behold, I was watching the evening news and I realized that 50% of the advertisements were from drug companies and food companies. And a light bulb went off and I said, wow, that seems like it might be recession proof. So then I focused. I joined the Food and Drug Law Institute a decade ago. I've been active in the membership and sponsoring different programs. And it's a great organization. But that's kind of how I got focused on it. And it's just kind of been, a snowball rolling downhill in a positive way, in that I've gotten a lot of focus and support from the people in the FDA bar.
So that's interesting. So what you're saying is before 2008, this wasn't your core area of focus. You sort of realized that there's a niche here.
Yeah, I had placed a few FDA lawyers, but that helped me focus in on it. I was just able to work with several lawyers early on in that period of time, and built contacts, connections, folks that really rely on me for insight into careers and what they're able to do with their options that might be available to them at any given time. I also work for a lot of companies, and they reach out to me, law firms, and they're looking for specific talent. They're really asking for my consulting advice, which I also give, as well as career counseling. But I give that to my client, law firms and corporations, and I give them what are the options here? How can you best get the persons you want? Is that reasonable in the marketplace? How do you find those people? And let me help you.
So you talk about this idea of you doing consulting. So I'm so used to dealing with recruitment consultants who, what I really perceive from the perspective of someone who is being recruited, is sort of this wide net that goes out, and everyone who could possibly fit into that net is sort of targeted. I literally, because I'm a food and drug lawyer, I'll see everything from regulatory starting sort of initial associate roles, and you're going, I'm a little. This is not me tooting my own horn. Like, I'm 20 years into the business. Like, I'm probably not an associate in a not even a law firm, but just sort of starting out putting numbers in.
Sure.
And I've worked at the C level, so maybe I'm a little bit closer to that side at this point. But
Yeah.
what is the difference between, say, those people who are sort of starting out and trying to cast that wide net? Is that just the way the business works, or is there a bit of more of a strategy to finding the right lawyers, to finding who's the right fit?
That's a good question. I think the answer is pretty much all over the map. I mean, we look for associates for law firms. We look for partners for law firms. Could be a partner counsel. Many law firms today have associate, senior associate, counsel, senior counsel, and partner. Sometimes non-equity, sometimes equity. And the range has changed from 25 years ago when there was really like associate and partner. So that's the law firm world. And then in the company, they're frequently looking for assistant or associate general counsel, deputy general counsel, or general counsel. Director level, senior vice president level. So it just varies. And you have the familiarity with all the different options, I think, in the food and drug law space. So, I can guide you in what makes the most sense. For instance, in my coaching practice, I've had people approach me, say, hey, Stuart, I got an offer. Maybe I got it through another recruiter or however I got it. But I'm just wondering, is it a good offer? Is the status appropriate? Is the compensation appropriate? Is the advancement opportunities, are they appropriate? So I pretty much respond to what is presented.
Sorry, I'm trying to also tweet out that we're doing this so that we can get more people listening in as well. So then you lose track of the tabs every so often. So what you're saying is, it's really people are coming out to you, not just saying find me the person, but you also have potential recruits saying, is this the right fit? Now, when is the appropriate time to reach out to you then? Because what I'm hearing is there's and everyone always says that it's never too early, but I have to believe that's not true. But tell me more.
Well, I think that from a career perspective, you need to do a number of things. Obviously, be a good lawyer. Practice your craft effectively. Learn from mentors. Get the guidance that you need to become as good a lawyer as you can become. Network. Look at the options. It's harder to network, of course, during the pandemic, but even that's possible at different conferences, and now I'm seeing hybrid conferences. But then I think in your toolkit also ought to be a reliable recruiter or two that you depend on to bring you different opportunities that might be of interest. I mean, if President Biden called you up and said, I want you to be deputy general counsel at the FDA, even if you're happy, you might say, oh, wow, I should think about that. So I find that the value I bring is just that.
Just to be clear, if President Biden calls, I'd like to be informed of that. So just putting that out there.
So a few others might be as well.
So I'm sorry, I didn't intend to cut you off. I apologize.
Well, no, I'm just saying that I think a reliable legal search consultant can tell you about the market, can advise you on your marketability, can be an advisor. I mean, sometimes in my coaching practice, I have folks that want to get a promotion. They think they've been passed over for promotion. What's happening here? What's going wrong? And I go through a step-by-step analysis of what have they done to promote, self-promote? What have they done to reach out to get a promotion or secure one in the best possible way? And I've helped people, write memos to the head of their practice group or the deputy general counsel for hiring and training, whomever it might be. But I'm an objective observer. I have a lot of experience, so I can help people who need to get a second opinion on what they're doing. I mean, we all get second opinions if we're going to a doctor, and I think it's no different in your career. Get some data points about how you might be of value in the marketplace.
It's so interesting you say that because I've never heard of a job coach. I'm sure they exist. I've just never heard of it. But it seems so essential because you're right. You never get feedback. You never get third-party perspective on what you're doing right or wrong. And
Yes.
how do you advance it? Like, I think everyone, at least me personally, and this might be imposter syndrome talking, but I'm always surprised that I got to where I did. And
Yeah.
everyone I talk to talks about how their path is unusual. And what I hear you saying is, yes, your path may be unusual, but there are ways to optimize that. And talking to someone like you might help with that process.
Yes, and I think everybody craves feedback. I mean, I like feedback, even negative feedback. I've gotten plenty of negative feedback in 30 years of doing this, but I think that's of value to everybody. You have to think about where's the feedback coming from. It might be a disgruntled client. It might be a disgruntled coworker. Who knows? Yeah. But just take it in stride, benefit from it by charting your course based on the feedback that you're getting.
So I have to ask mostly, how do you sort of bill for something like that? How do I, as a person, let's say I was looking for a job today, potentially looking for a job.
Yeah.
I would go, Stuart, I need your help. Do
Sure.
you set up a program? Do you set up a hourly thing? How does that work?
Well, no, I'm paid by employers.
Oh, okay.
So even when I do a retained search, they pay me a fee up front and we negotiate the final fee.
Even for the coaching?
I'm sorry?
Even for the coaching?
No, the coaching is different. The coaching is a different animal. I charge $1,000 retainer. I never charge more than that. We break it down on an hourly basis, $400 an hour. And if you use an hour or a half hour, whatever, that's what you owe. And that's all you owe. And I don't take the cash from you. I have a nonprofit that I'm on the board of directors for, NAMI Maryland, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And I donate that money to them. So you get a 501c3 IRS donation in addition to, supporting your career.
That's amazing. So there's so many questions about this, but it's such a great model. In fact, I probably want to talk to you later on to see how I can help support you in something like that, because that's such a great cause. I don't know if people ever want to just talk to other lawyers to get feedback, but it's such a great cause.
There's actually a group called the National Alliance on Mental Illness. It's not really related to NAMI, but it's called the Lawyers Depression Project. And that's been in existence for 3 years. It was started by a partner in a big law firm in New York. And they have support calls, 8 times a month for an hour. And, there's a lot of lawyers that suffer from mental health issues that they don't want to talk about because you're in a law firm, it's a competitive place, and it's not necessarily the most supportive place.
Very interesting. So let's sort of, and we should probably we'll try to put a link or something, ideally, that talks about NAMI. But going back to what we were discussing earlier, so coaching, you have this process where someone will reach out. Now, do these people tend to be stuck when they reach out, or are things moving, which is why they're reaching out going, how do I make maximum use of this acceleration?
I think most people, well, it could be anything really. Could be just, this week I've had for the 5th time negative feedback I think is unwarranted, maybe there's a better place for me. Another example, I'm in a dysfunctional practice. People are leaving here with regularity. I don't
Ah,
find mentoring here. I don't find, support for, my life. Maybe I got two young kids. I have to pick them up, from childcare at 5 p.m. and that's frowned upon. And I'm like, wow, I'm willing to work until, midnight to get the assignment done that day. But I just have to take off at, 4:45 to pick up my kids.
yeah.
Well, there can be a wide range of things. At the core is what level of pain are you in? I use pain very figuratively here, but
Yeah.
where's the anxiety? Where's the discontent? And what I try to do is help you diagnose it and take steps to address it.
So let's flip this around a little bit before we dive in deeper. Um, what about this process makes you happy? Like, what is your favorite part of going through the day and going, you know what? I'm really glad this is what I do for a living.
Well, I just pretty much every day I'm happy I'm doing it. I mean, I practiced law for 6, 7 years and I never flourished as a lawyer. I was okay, but I just had a precipitous life event. I had a brain tumor, a benign tumor, and I'm fine. But
Okay.
after I went through 12 hours of surgery, I said, wow, I'm really not enjoying being a practicing attorney. I ought to look at options. So it took me a few months and I, decided on this. I had interviewed, there weren't that many legal search consultants in the Washington, D.C. area, in 1988 or whenever it was, 1989. So that made me feel, hey, I'm in the right field. And I flourished in it. I find making the connection with people, everybody's looking for advice. I'm not a psychotherapist. I'm not a doctor.
Right.
I don't really need that level of focus to be satisfied, but I focus totally on, careers, issues for folks, the psychological component. I was working with somebody today that had an offer, but they wanted to get a little bit more and they weren't quite sure. And, kind of went through the whole process of how do you make that decision? I post a lot on LinkedIn. So anybody who's not on my LinkedIn feed, I invite you to reach out or in my LinkedIn system. And one of the things I posted was a few months ago, and I got 1,000 likes or something, was about how long does it take to decide if you get a job offer? And I shot from the hip and said 48 to 72 hours. And a lot of people like that. And I think what they were saying is, yeah, if you're agonizing, you shouldn't go there. You should be able to decide whether it's a good opportunity. And it's funny with people who have an offer and they tell me, I can't decide, I have the offer, it looks good, but I really like where I work, etc. I go, well, there's a third option. And they go, really? And I go, yeah, you can't decide. That's the third option. And then they're all like, oh, wow, what does that mean? I said, well, 80% of the people that can decide, I don't think you should go, because you got mixed feelings. You need a lot of energy to start a new job.
That's such an interesting perspective. So it's interesting you say that because I actually have a slightly different perspective on that, and I'd be curious what your take on it is.
Yeah.
My experience is that if you can't decide something, it means you can't make a bad decision because it means that both sides are equivalent in your eyes.
I mean, I get that. I think that, I don't know. I think a lot of people agonize over decisions because they're just, inertia's powerful.
Yeah.
Lawyers, you get trained from day one to be risk averse.
Yeah.
So the thought of going to a new place, working with new people, is the workload going to be the same? Are they going to be real quirky a month in?
Yeah.
You have to kind of get that resolved to a point where you're really pumped about going to the new place.
So what in your experience is indicative that a lawyer will flourish in a new place?
Oh, yeah, good question. Well, I think the first thing you look at, you look at two major things. One, actually three. You say to yourself, hey, do they have a job that needs doing? Two, am I the right person to do that job?
Right.
And three, do I want to do the job? And that's actually the same analysis that a lawyer who's trying to generate work from a potential client goes into that process of in back and forth with a potential client. And that's what you need to say then as well. What is the job they need doing? Is it a legal problem that they have? Can I solve that legal problem? Do I have confidence I can do it well? And then do I want to? Is it a problem I want to take on?
It's interesting. I'm going to draw a parallel. As you know, I'm also a pharmacist, and I talk to a lot of pharmacists who have extreme job dissatisfaction right now.
Okay.
And
yes.
They're all just a lot of retail pharmacies, for example. I mean, for the last 20 years, as a retail pharmacist and stuff, I've seen people saying, "I just don't like where I am. I don't want to be part of this." Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But now what's happened is that a lot of them are straight up resigning, and they're like, "I'd rather just not work than continue to work where I am." Wow. My question for you, so when I talk to them, a lot of the times what I'm really discussing with them is this idea that you're not running towards something, you're just running away from something else.
Yeah.
And I find that to be problematic, because you may not like if you don't know what's causing you to run away, how do you know that the new place is not going to make you do the same thing in a year and a half or less than that?
That's what you look for in your job interviews or in the postings or the contact that you get from a search consultant. What are they touting about the job? How is that addressing your issues or your problems? If your hours are really unreasonable, is there a place that has a better lifestyle, work-life balance situation? If you don't find the leadership of your organization effective, what would you term to be effective leadership? What would you look for? And then again, I think that's the beauty of my job and why I enjoy it so much, is I try to help people do that analysis and present an accurate picture of whether the place that they could go interview for, and in my opinion, I think I could get them an interview, whether that would be solving those issues.
So I'm going to say this as a pharmacist, and I'm probably going to get a lot of pushback on this, but I'm going to say it anyways, because it's my channel. I get to do that. I've found a lot of pharmacists are prima donnas, and I found that they don't want to do certain things, and that probably includes me at several points in my life. And we think that we are really qualified. My question for you is that the same in the case of lawyers? Do you find lawyers are often prima donnas?
They can be. Certainly any person in any profession can be a prima donna. But I think the lawyers I work with, I find to be mostly pretty reasonable.
Good.
I like to work with reasonable people. I mean, that's like a given. But they're reasonable in that they set realistic objectives for a lateral move or move into a new with a new employer. So I don't see that many. Certainly some are. I mean, there's certainly in the FDA bar, there's certain lawyers that are known to be not the easiest to work with. I'll leave it at that.
Sure.
So my effort is to try to help people navigate around that. I mean, frankly, even the prima donnas can be extremely loyal to people that they hire, do advocate for them in terms of promotions, and people do stay in that situation. Other people say, yeah, how can you work for that person? And then they'll say, yeah, well, he's helped me get a promotion. He gave me a time off when I needed it, when I had a health problem, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think, I don't see many lawyers who are just, not a good fit for anyone.
So, and I should clarify, it's not all pharmacists. Obviously, some of the people I've worked with is just like you said in any other situation. But let me ask you another question, which was, you have this unique job of effectively being in sales,
yes,
for someone else's company. So do you find yourself when you've connected and you know that there's a good connection, right? And you're signing the paperwork, do you find yourself having to now continue the sale after everyone's signed on, because then that increases potential job satisfaction and the potential new employee comes out excited? Or do you find yourself dampening it so that you don't set the expectations too high? How do you sort of get the candidate and the employer prepared for what happens next?
Well, I think a realistic appraisal that I can maybe help with the checklist that you're going through, identify the factors. But, I just try to make sure that somebody's making the right choice, that their decision, and even if it's to stay put, I had someone in the last couple of weeks, had an awesome offer and decided to stay put. I didn't fully resonate with that. I mean, it wasn't just that I was going to earn a fee on that, but it was, I kind of understood the reasoning. I thought, yeah, a reasonable person can make that decision. I thought there were a number of other reasons why they would have wanted to take that job, but I understood the reasons. So I'm never pushing people into places where I don't think they're going to fit or be happy. I think that's my job, really, is to make a situation happen that's better for both the client and the candidate that I'm working with.
I guess I didn't clarify my question. So let's assume that the candidate and the client are now signed up.
Mm-hmm.
They know they're going to be working together.
Right. Candidate has started work already, or the interim?
No, they haven't started work already. So do you actually pump them up and go, aren't you excited about this new job? This is going to be amazing. Or do you sort of go, like, how do you help blend the culture once you know that the culture is going to come together?
Well, I think a lot of that's already been done.
Okay.
They've done the analysis. I'm just, further data point on the viability and the wisdom of that choice. But I think that's pretty much done. Like the smart clients of mine, especially law firms, they have what they call a lateral partner integration plan. So at the partner level, they're basically saying, all right, John or Mary, we're thrilled to have you. And the first week here, this is what you're going to do. The second week, this is what you're going to do. The first month, you're going to have these meetings. And they just go through a whole system to introduce them throughout the firm, get them comfortable with the potential referral sources. I mean, most of the law firms that have more than 500 lawyers, they pretty much get enough requests for food and drug legal assistance, whether it's in litigation or whether it's on a transaction, that they're able to get work from within the law firm without having to go out and market.
Which is really interesting to me. So I'm working with several law firms now, and of specific note at this moment, I'm working with Stevens and Lee. I can say that because I'm on their website as a consultant, and sure. There's a ton of work that I didn't even realize happens internally. Yes. What I'd like to understand a little bit more is when you have a situation where you've got you're bringing someone together. Have you seen situations where let me rephrase the question. I was talking to another law firm probably 4, 5, 6 years ago, and I was trying to figure out whether they were interested in a food and drug lawyer coming on board.
Sure.
And one of the piece of feedback I got at that time was there are a lot of conflicts, and it's not worth it. On the other hand, the work I'm doing right now just seems like value building work that feeds into other clients as well. Yeah. So what has been your experience? Do you find that it sort of goes in phases, that food and drug lawyers are sometimes in demand and then sometimes they're out because there are just too many conflicts? Or how does that play out for you?
Well, there's a couple of ways to respond to that. The first, there are direct business conflicts and there are sometimes legal conflicts. Mm-hmm. But the business conflict is what I see most often, especially for partners. For example, they may have a lot of generic drug clients.
Sure.
So they're operating on the generic side of things. And Hatch-Waxman, many of your listeners know all about that, probably a lot more than me. But anyway, the branded folks and the generic folks don't tend to like each other. So, you get into that conflict. And if you want to make a statement that your law firm's representing the branded side, you may pass up some very major assignments with generic drug companies or vice versa.
Right.
So again, that's a business thing. sometimes intellectual property lawyers are doing patent prosecution for a generic drug maker, and they don't want their client to focus on the conflict there. There really isn't much of a conflict, but people perceive it. So that's one way to answer your question. The second way, I guess, is simply when you look at conflicts, they're not really episodic. I mean, they're pretty much regularly come up, might not come up for 2 years, but might come up again, in 2 years and 6 months, 3 times. So you never know about that. So you have to make that calculation too, especially partners. If they move to a new law firm, they have to perceive that there won't be conflicts with their existing clients, or the client base they want to work with is in concert with what they're doing already.
So that's the legal and the business conflicts. Do you think that is like, how do the largest? I mean, like you pointed out, some of the largest law firms have a food and drug law practice because there's just a ton of work there.
Yeah.
So how did they manage the conflicts then?
They have big law firms have probably 5 people that all they do is check conflicts. I mean, it's kind of mind-numbing when you get to it. Sometimes it'll take 2 to 4 weeks before even an associate can have all the conflicts checked adequately.
Okay.
If conflicts come up in that checking process, then either the potential new hire has to get a client to waive the conflict, or the law firm has to get the client to waive the conflict. So I've seen that happen up even to 4 weeks. It's usually 5 to 10 days to do that conflict check.
Okay. I just meant it from the hiring perspective, not so much an active conflicts check. It's what I'm hearing you saying is from a client hiring perspective. Sorry, from a hiring a new associate, or from hiring a new partner, it's not as much of a big deal as some firms might believe. Is that fair, or did I put words in your mouth?
I mean, it's really on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, fair enough. Awesome. I can keep going, but I did promise you that this would be about 15, 20 minutes. We're already at 32 minutes. So you're just an interesting conversationalist. So I appreciate you being here. What I tend to do at the end of these talks is I tend to have 4 questions I ask my audience. Would you be open to playing along?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Wonderful. The first question, what would you like to ask the audience?
Well, I'm very interested in how you guys perceive working with a legal search consultant. I mean, have you had good results? What are your expectations? Was the person professional? I mean, the biggest thing is confidentiality. Have they been able to assure that there's no breach of confidentiality from start to finish? So that's one question. The second question is I'm curious how, when they get a call, inevitably there's calls. I mean, we're on this 32 minutes here right now, and there's probably been, 500 calls made to FDA lawyers in Washington, D.C. as we speak.
Yeah.
But anyway, when they get a call, what do they look for in the call? What kind of advice do they seek, if any? Who do they engage with, and why? So I'm kind of curious about that. And then I guess a third question would be, how have you charted your own career? Is it just kind of episodic? Did I got a call one day or my best friend asked me, that's another point. A lot of folks will call me after they have a job offer, either on their own or through another recruiter, and ask me to kind of vet it with them. Does this make sense? Is this a good employer? Which I do my career counseling thing with that one. But, I think, they're just looking for reassurance. Because that's the bottom line in this entire process. Employers are looking for reassurance. In real estate, it's location. But it's the same thing the other way around. The candidate's looking for that reassurance. The employer's looking for the reassurance. Because, they've seen the resume, they think it looks good. The candidate's heard about the job, thinks it looks good. So that's what people are looking for.
Okay. I usually try to answer them. There's so many answers I can give. So let me try to answer the first thing, which is what you asked was what kind of calls do you get? I guess is one way to phrase that. I already forgot the first two questions, so I apologize, but let's answer that one. For me, I like to at least give you the first answer. Hopefully, other people will respond eventually, and you'll see some of the answers. But for me, the thing I have been getting calls about seems to change over time. Every year, they tend to be different. Last year, what was really hot for me was global clinical trial transparency. Super hot. It's already super hot again this year. So that's one big thing. On the other hand, this year what's been really hot for me has been medical affairs and clinical trial negotiations and promotional compliance. So that's been really, really hot for me as well. And then there's always work in supplements. There's always work in pharmacy, and there's those always sort of have things going on with them.
Sure.
So that would be my piece. But yeah, go ahead.
I mean, there are hot areas. I mean, every FDA lawyer on the planet was doing emergency use authorizations in April through December of last year.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty impressive. The FDA, I know, handled Mark Raza, who's now the acting general counsel over there. I was talking to him back in April of last year, and he was just talking about how he was working on COVID in December of 2019. They were starting to get information that there was a problem or an issue. And so he had a team over there, probably 12 or 15 lawyers. All they did was COVID related stuff for months.
Wow. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question for you. What is something you learned in the last month?
What I learned is that reasonable people make good decisions, but some people get so anxious that their mind gets, they just can't, they melt down. So a lot of times, spouses, there's kids involved in spouses. So the individual attorney that I'm counseling and trying to get the job offer for, salary sometimes comes into effect. So in other words, they're thinking, this is a great job for me. It doesn't pay as much as this other one, but it's a great job for me. And sometimes there's a back and forth between key people like a spouse or, significant other or whatnot. And they're all like, why don't you just take the most money? It's easy. So I think reasonable people will see that doesn't necessarily bring happiness. I mean, on the list of things that motivate people to move, money's number 5. It's not number 1.
What is number 1?
Cultural fit, satisfaction level. I think, do I like the job? Do I like the people? If I feel really positive about both of those things, that's really what drives most job changes.
Very, very cool. So what is something people don't know about you?
Well, I'm a good punster.
Okay.
I try not to do that when I'm counseling people because they get a little rattled and they don't get the pun anyhow because they're focused on something else. But I haven't been to a lot of dinner parties the last 18 months. But, I grew up with a brother who was good at it. So we still do it with each other.
That's awesome. That's a really, really good sort of tidbit. That's awesome. Here's another question. What's something that made you happy in the last week?
Just I worked on this one specific project that went really fast. And I felt that both the client and the candidate were incredibly flexible, incredibly motivated to make it happen. And they did a lot of reasonable things. And I always like that because there's, a lot of times I work with a client and they just don't get it or they're not responsive. They don't get back to you. They don't, a lot of times, law firms, even in-house jobs, they don't recognize that their delays are causing them harm in the marketplace. And to be able to recruit effectively and have everything lined up, to get the candidate through smoothly is a big plus for law firms and corporations.
That's amazing. Last question, and we've been covering this throughout, but how can people reach you?
Yeah, I have my LinkedIn is easy. My email is easy. Just send me a note. If you just want to chat, I mean, I'm not too aggressive. I think I'm assertive, but I don't think I'm aggressive, although one candidate called me aggressive. Um, anyway, my other client said, "Oh, that's a good thing. Don't you want an aggressive recruiter?" But anyway, I think that this, I don't know, this whole process that I'm going through with you is very interesting. It's kind of reminded me of a number of things. So I'm able to answer any other questions that you've got right now.
No, but I have one last question for you: is would you be interested in coming back? Because this was a lot of fun.
Yeah, sure. I'll be happy to.
Perfect. Again, you can reach Stuart at stuarttenhoor.com. You can see it flash on the screen as we speak. Stuart, thank you so much for coming on. I'm excited to have you back soon.
Thanks so much, Darshan. I really enjoyed it.